Let me tell you a story the headlines won't dare. A quiet storm gathering across oceans. A slow and silent revolution that's shaking boardrooms in Brussels, collapsing budgets in Paris, and haunting the corridors of old European power. Once Europe was the master of global wealth. Not because it had more, but because it took more. From the gold mines of Ghana to the palm plantations and cobalt of Congo to the diamond fields of South Africa, Europe's prosperity was carved from the soul of Africa. They came in ships, they came with flags, they came with Bibles in one hand and contracts in the other. They told stories of civilization while chaining kingdoms. They called it trade. We called it theft. And for decades, centuries even, the game never really changed. Africa supplied, Europe sold, Africa borrowed, Europe dictated. But the tide is turning. In 2025, across African capitals, something unfamiliar is stirring. Confidence. From Dakar to Dar es Salaam, Lusaka to Lagos, the continent is no longer begging for inclusion. It's building its own table, its own trade, its own terms. And Europe is panicking. In France, inflation is climbing like a slow-burning fire. In Italy, industries are on life support. In Germany, manufacturers are begging for raw materials no longer flowing from Africa like they used to. Why? Because Africa has stopped playing its old role. No longer the dumping ground of expired policies and toxic loans. No longer a charity case for IMF handouts. No longer the silent partner in global trade. Today's Africa is unrecognizable to those who still think of it in colonial terms. Let's look at Ghana, once just a cocoa field for European chocolate empires. Now, it's building state-of-the-art processing plants. No more exporting raw beans, no more middlemen. Now Ghana makes the chocolate, Ghana owns the brand. In Rwanda, data centers rise where colonial barracks once stood. Tech startups sprout faster than coffee beans. Engineers code in Kinyarwanda, write in Python, and dream in 5G. They're not waiting for Silicon Valley. They're building their own valley on African soil. And in Nigeria, Africa's economic engine, they're not exporting crude oil like before. They're building refineries, mega ones. Dangote's name rings louder than Shell's. For every sector once monopolized by European firms, Africa is placing a stake. But Europe, it didn't see this coming. You see, Europe built its wealth on one simple equation. Cheap resources plus cheap labor, unlimited profit. But Africa has learned the equation too. And now it's changing the variables. What happens when the supplier refuses to supply on someone else's terms? What happens when the colonized refuses to play colonized? Europe is learning the hard way. In Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, the French flags are being lowered by force if necessary. French companies are being expelled. Military bases shut down. Uranium